What's going on, guys? It's Sean here with Gadget Reason. With the incredible popularity of the now sold out and very hard to find NES Classic miniature console that got released for this year's holiday shopping season, I started thinking more and more about the rise in the popularity of retro gaming. Everything from throwback-inspired indie games that are using 8-bit styled graphics to large corporations like Kia using Bo Jackson and Tecmo Bowl in their current advertising campaign. So it's really just kind of everywhere. So a couple of weeks ago, I decided to dig out my Nintendo Game Boy console that I've had since it was originally released. Now, it was in pretty bad shape. The plastic was yellowed, there was corrosion all inside the battery compartment, the speaker didn't really work anymore. So I decided to do a little bit of research and set out on a path to restore my original launch edition Nintendo Game Boy back to its former glory. Now, in the summer of 1989, I was pretty much like any average 13-year-old kid. I was a smart-mouthed, obnoxious kid with a bad attitude and an even worse case of ADD. Now, long before the internet existed, we got all of our gaming and tech news from magazines. And at some point, I'd convinced my parents to get me a subscription to a few of them, and I always looked forward to their arrival in the mail to kind of see what was new and what was happening in the gaming and tech world. And there it was. There was this ad for this Nintendo Game Boy. I stared at it for 10 minutes, literally trying to understand how this could even be possible. You have to try and remember that at this point in time, the only truly portable gaming device that was really widely available were the Game & Watch systems that were also available from Nintendo. So as you can imagine, this concept of having a self-contained video game device that didn't need to be plugged into a television and that could be carried around in the palm of my hand, in my backpack, and ran on batteries was just my sole mission in life. Became trying to figure out how to obtain one of these devices without my parents knowing that I had it. In spite of what the ads were trying to portray, I couldn't really imagine a scenario where I would get grounded or punished and my parents would not also take away the Nintendo Game Boy. So I got together with one of my buddies and we decided to go out and try and make some money in the neighborhood, doing things like walking dogs or feeding people's pets when they were out of town, doing some yard work, mowing lawns, trimming hedges, basically any odd job that we could find that would allow us to make some extra money. So let's take a look at the completely restored Game Boy after it's been reassembled. And I think at first glance you can tell that I put a lot of time and effort into trying to get this back to as close to factory new condition as I possibly could. Now, there were a few concessions that I had to make on areas that could not be fully restored, so I just outright replaced them, and I'll get to those in just a second. Basically, once the Game Boy was completely disassembled, I did some basic cleaning with household cleaning products, and then after that, I did some really light sanding with a fine grit sandpaper on a few small areas that were scratched or blemished. I also cleaned the internal PC board with some alcohol. There was some sticky residue and some corrosion on a few areas, and the volume and contrast slider wheels and potentiometers were also kind of sticky, so I cleaned those with alcohol as well. I also ended up replacing some bad capacitors to fix the audio problem. The final step in the cleaning process was to use a bleach that's designed for use in hair salons. It's what they use to dye people's hair, and it's basically a peroxide bleach that's in a shampoo type texture. I basically just applied it to the entire housing of the Game Boy's plastic chassis and let it sit for a few hours and then repeated a few times until most of the yellow staining was gone. And then lastly, I replaced the original plastic screen lens that was pretty severely scratched with an aftermarket version made from real glass. Once I had everything screwed back together, it was time to pop in some rechargeable batteries and fire it up and see if it all worked. Thankfully, everything worked perfectly right out of the gate and I didn't have any major issues. And one of the most impressive things to me is that even after nearly 30 years, the gameplay and graphics still really hold up. Obviously, the grayscale color palette and 8-bit pixels are no match for today's modern devices with high-resolution screens and all that, but it's still a lot of fun to play. Really, it's a true testament to the outstanding artists and game designers of that era for finding ways to maximize the limited resources they had available. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is that the artists of that generation actually used the limitations in the screen technology and the hardware to actually make the graphics look better. And if you look at these graphics from Mario Land, which is one of the older games available for the Nintendo Game Boy, you can see exactly how the game developers and artists used the limited screen technology and the 4-bit grayscale palette to really be able to maximize the believability of the graphics. Now, obviously, again, these graphics do not hold up when you compare them to, say, a Nintendo 3DS, but the reality is that on this very limited, very ancient hardware, you can still look at this screen and tell that that is absolutely Mario running across the screen, and you can see that there is actual depth and shading applied to a lot of the graphics in the background. Comparing the original Game Boy to today's portable consoles is pretty tough because you could actually argue that the Game Boy was the closest we've come yet to replicating what was possible in a home console for the time. Now, obviously, something like the PlayStation Vita or the Nintendo 3DS are incredibly powerful machines compared to what the Game Boy was capable of. But at the time, the Nintendo Game Boy actually came really close to the same hardware specifications that were in the NES. One of the things that I found most interesting about going through this whole process was that portable consoles have kind of been promising to recreate the home or arcade experience in a portable package for years. And for all the improvements and technology leaps that have happened over the past few generations, that still really has never been achieved. Now, the PSP was a pretty big leap towards making that goal a reality with full 3D graphics and an analog control stick that was similar to the home consoles of that generation, but on a power perspective, it was pretty far behind what was capable on a PS2 or an Xbox. The Vita took things a little bit closer with incredible 3D graphics and dual analog sticks, but the developer support was never really there, so we never really got to see the true power and potential of what the Vita was going to be capable of. Even Nintendo themselves seems to still be striving to deliver that full console experience, even attempting to combine the two systems now with the announcement of their upcoming Nintendo Switch Hybrid. Taking a look at the Game Boy specs, we have a custom 8-bit CPU from Sharp that was running at a blazing fast 4.19 MHz. It had 8 kilobytes of RAM, 8 kilobytes of internal video RAM, and it was rocking a single speaker up front. The Game Boy's sound processing was capable of producing stereo sound, but you needed to plug in headphones to be able to take advantage of this. On the screen side of things, the Game Boy was rocking a 2.6-inch non-backlit reflective STN LCD with an ever so crispy 160 by 144 pixel resolution. The display was running on a 2-bit color palette that was capable of producing 4 shades of gray, or in the case of the Game Boy original, light green to very dark olive green. Because of the fact that the Game Boy did not have a backlit display, you could get up to 30 hours of gameplay time on a set of 4 AA batteries. And I can tell you that over the past 2 weeks, I've been using the Eneloop rechargeable batteries in my Game Boy, and even after 15 plus hours of playtime and testing to record video footage, I still have not had to recharge the batteries once, so that's pretty amazing. Like so many things in technology, it's easy to forget how much we owe to the early technology breakthroughs like the Game Boy. For me, the Game Boy represents a lot more than just a portable video game console. You could really make the case that the Game Boy was the first truly portable mobile device. So, without the Game Boy, maybe we wouldn't have iPhones. One of the things I always remembered about the Game Boy was the ridiculous amount of games that were available. It seemed like everybody and anybody was making games for the Game Boy. Now, that really shouldn't come as that much of a surprise. When a system sells as well as the Game Boy did, obviously developers are going to jump on board. The original Game Boy sold a staggering 118 million units during its lifespan. That puts it in third place on the list of best-selling consoles of all time. What's even more amazing is that 2 of the top 3 best-selling consoles of all time are both portable Nintendo handhelds. The Nintendo DS actually sold 154 million units worldwide during its lifespan, which puts it in second right behind the world's best-selling console, which everybody knows is the PlayStation 2, that sold an incredible 157 million units during its lifespan. If you're interested in playing retro games, then the Game Boy is definitely a good choice of systems to play them on. Not only are you going to have hundreds of titles to choose from, but you're also going to be able to play them on a device that lasts about 30 hours of playtime, which you definitely can't say about any other portable device. Now listen, I get it. A lot of people might watch this video and think, my god, he's rambling on about something as stupid as a Nintendo Game Boy. But the truth is that the Game Boy represented much more than just being a simple video game console for me at the time. For one, it opened my imagination to what would be possible in the future from mobile devices or portable electronics. For me, and I think for probably a lot of other people of my generation, the Nintendo Game Boy represented sort of a gateway to the future of what would ultimately become possible with things like the iPhone or Android devices or tablets. And it was kind of our entry into the tech universe and that enthusiasm of what was truly possible with technology. So guys, that wraps up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave me some comments in the comment section below. I would love to know what some of your most memorable personal experiences are with either mobile electronics or if you have some with the Nintendo Game Boy specifically. Anyway guys, that's it for this video. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up. If you loved it, subscribe to the channel so you get notified when other videos like this one drop in the future. As always, you can find me on all social media platforms at Gadget Reason. Anyway, that's it for me. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.